Greetings, Banff Warriors. Greetings. Welcome to the Results Kill Excuses channel. My name's Greg. I'm your host. So thankful to be here with you today. This day of life. I wanted to welcome all the new beautiful souls checking in here, signing on here, just giving of a little bit of your time and attention to hear my message. And I wanted to share some thoughts with you today as I'm coming to you from what I consider to be one of the most sacred places on planet Earth, definitely in North America, here in northern New Mexico. And I can just hear the bird song. I could smell the blossoms and the roses and the flowers blooming, the fresh air. I can hear a small creek trickling down the valley behind me. And I'm just so thankful for life today. I just got done really digging into my morning routine, and it's been one of the most essential parts of my 12 years of recovery, and that's a big part of my message and my show, is the fact that I'm someone that did it. I broke through my addictions. I broke through my self-sabotaging behaviors and my habits and the pain, right? The brokenness, the bitterness. Any of you truly bitter, right? Bitter about the hand that you've been dealt, bitter about the things that didn't go as planned throughout the course of your life, and thus there you find yourself in a place that you never thought you'd be. Right? You thought you could have been more. You thought you would have had more. You thought you could have been more at this point in life. And, those internal psychological, mental, and emotional battles are some of the most fiercest battles that I've had to go through. And in order to purge those and release those, I've had to go through the dark nights of the soul. And I've had to let go. And that is the point of this message today, is to say, letting go it's scary. It really is scary. I don't care how tough you are. I don't care how evolved you are. I don't care how spiritual you are, religious you are, what titles you give yourself. Anytime that we in our human selves have to let go, we have apprehension. We have to negotiate with ourselves. We have to really we psych ourselves out. And I truly do believe that it is a part of the evolution. It's a part of this experience. This is how you grow. And the picture that came to my mind today when I was meditating was, a snake, a serpent shedding its skin. If you've ever seen a video of this process, like a time-lapse video, it doesn't just fall off. Like, you can tell that snake has to, really get abrasive to remove that old layer so that it can grow. That's the whole point of it. It needs to grow. Another example, if you're triggered by serpents as somehow a symbol of, evil or mysticism, and that exists, right? When there's no good and there's no bad in nature, right? Nature is so pure and beautiful, and as is, it's only humans that we have to create definitions. And yet the other image that I have is like of an elk or a deer, a buck or a bull elk having to shed the antlers. Same thing. right? It doesn't just happen, like, they go through a process of rutting and having to, like, scrape the trees, and it must feel, like, really irritating, right? The process that they have to go through to shed those antlers so that they can go through another season of growth, of evolution, so that next year's antlers would even be bigger and more grand and more pronounced. And yet, I can tell you through my own patterns of the past, right? I used to let go in anger and drama and fallout and negativity, right? Because I'm someone that in my upbringing, I have abandonment wounds. I have rejection wounds. I've experienced a lot of betrayal, and maybe you can relate to these things. I think that's why I'm sharing this message. I am truly believing that my intent is I'm going to attract people that my message resonates with and that it lands on and that you can connect with it and that you will share this message, that you will like this message, that you'll comment and you'll start to engage in this community. And so I'm someone that had those wounds, right? The rejection wounds, the abandonment wounds from my childhood, right? This is childhood stuff. And so when you think about losing somebody or something, it's like, man, you have to fall back on what your experience was. And so those negative emotions come out. And then usually at a subconscious level, we'll create some kind of a conflict with somebody or something that creates a reason for us to have fallout, a reason for us to then fuel what we think is anger, right? But it'll really be sadness. It'll really be like a self-destructive, self-sabotaging, triggered emotional response in order for us to feel somehow safer or protected within ourselves so that we can, like, push these people out of our lives. And that's not the right way to do it. And I have evolved throughout my 12 years of sobriety. Again, that's a big part of this journey is the healing journey. I want to encourage and guide people to release addictions, to release attachments that no longer serve you. And the new way that I have found how to let go and release is in love. It is an absolute love when we can be centered and grounded on ourselves. When we are willing to go in within ourselves and truly align ourselves with the vision, with the spirit, and with the calling that God has given us on this planet, then we can see with clear spiritual eyes first, and then with physical eyes that there are things that we need to let go of, and we can do it in love. We can communicate in love. We can express ourselves, our needs, our boundaries, so that there can be a harmonious parting of the ways. And most of us are so afraid to do that because we think by losing things that we lose our value, because a lot of times the problem is that we have attached our value to having relation or connection with something. It could be a material thing like a house or a car or a job. Like, you get value, your identity is placed in that thing when you're not that thing. Because how could your value be put into a house or a car or a job, but you wouldn't put your value into a piece of trash, right? An old rusty scrap metal out in the yard, or, a rock. Just as a few examples, like, we wouldn't really project ourselves and say, like, these low things that seem kinda, right, low value, We wouldn't put our identity in that, but yet we would love to put our identity in luxurious things or things that we think are the best when it's like our value is in our life force inside of us, right? That's your value. That's who you are. The material will fall away at some point, and yet what remains is the spirit inside of you. And so it is a scary thing for us to take off those masks, to release the things that no longer serve us. And I think that I want to get into a deeper dive with that conversation. And I hope that you'll continue to join me as I share my message, my truth with the world and do it in a whole new way because I've had some of the most profound spiritual experiences of recent and I'm aligning with my purpose, my greatest purpose after 12 years of sobriety, 12 years of transformation and growth mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. It's like it's all finally coming together as I just saw 11:11 come up on the timer. And it means the world to me to share this, to inspire you, to uplift you, to encourage you. But then the big piece is to challenge you so that you can grow, so that you can heal, so that you can truly expand who you are into the highest version of yourself for the greatest good of humanity. Like, it doesn't matter what's going on around you. It matters what's going on inside of you. And what's going on inside of you is actually what dictates what you are paying attention around you. What catches your attention that's going on around you is in relation to what's going on inside. And I can give you an example of few years ago, right? I've always had a rocky relationship with my mother. And a lot of that is because of the trauma bond. And, I'll talk more about this, but me and my mother, you know, survived some incredible amount of trauma and abuse and literally like life threatening circumstances at the hands of my father. And we created a trauma bond. We created codependency between us. And it's just always been a really tough relationship, right? And as I've healed my own trauma, I'm going to fast forward past the childhood and into more of the more recent years is as I've gone through my own healing journey, especially reprogramming the subconscious and healing, one of the things that I've had to do, and I had to do it right here, letting go in love, was I needed to create some space between myself and my lovely mother. And in the past, everything I'm telling you about is absolutely true. If if for whatever reason we needed to kind of part ways, we would create a conflict between us so that we could have a fight, that we could have fallout, and then that we could go our separate ways. Right. And that's because that's a family pattern that I can give you a dozen examples of that get triggered and brought up in my psyche in all kinds of interpersonal relationships within my family dynamic. Maybe this is connecting with you. I know this message is coming through flow, coming through spirit, and going out to you for a reason. And yet it was a few years ago around Christmas where I had I was going through a really tough time, man. Like God was just pulling the rug out from under me. I lost my job. I had a really hard breakup in a matter of weeks, right? Lost the job, had a major heartbreak breakup, like major falling out, total life upheaval, and Christmas comes around a few months like a month later, and man, I was, like, barely scraping by. I was, like, really pressured and pressed to get by, and so I couldn't be so abundant and generous with gifts, and my mother's love language, most likely, I don't know this to be a fact, but it's probably gifts is probably in the top 3. And so kinda Christmas comes and goes, and I start like she was, like, sending me stuff, "Hey, you need to bring your kids by, my kids, to get their presents," and then, for her, she was having to, like, put the dollars and cents together, how much money she had spent on the gifts. And I'm not trying to paint my mother in a bad light at all. So I just want to preface this. I love my mom because again, we're letting go in love. I love her unconditionally and I would do anything for her. This is just even her own unhealed trauma. And we all have that. And that's where I think we have to start to see things in more spiritual sense and disconnect from the distractions. And so what really hurt me in this season was she knew that I had lost my job. She knew that I had lost my, you know, a really important person in my life. I would even say the love of my life. Like it wasn't even my ex-wife, but it was just a really important, deep relationship, a connection. I lost this person. It's kind of the country western song, right? My dog ran away, my truck broke down, and my girl left me. Right? It was like lost the job too, right? Like it was just incredible, challenging test. And so I just didn't have the abundance. And there was my mom sending me these really kind of, I don't know, man, just unloving, right? Unloving messages demanding a gift. And I'm like, do you not see me? And so she kind of communicated, well, I guess we're not doing Christmas anymore, right? That was her declaration. No more Christmases. And I said, all right, that's fine, so be it. I don't know what else to tell you. And so fast forward the next year, she went back into the programming of like, "Oh, gifts and got you this and got you that." And I said, "I thought we're not doing the Christmas anymore." And so I actually avoided going to her place around Christmas. This was the following year. And then like a week later, I did take my children there and like they got their gifts, I got mine, and I didn't have no gifts for her because I thought we had made a mutual agreement, no more gifts, like it's okay. And so she was upset, and I asked my kids to go outside, and me and my mother had this deep conversation. And it was a really healthy conversation because it was heartfelt, and I was able to express myself in a way that I had never expressed myself to my mother, and she comes from a generation of the authoritarian types. Do as I say, not as I do, right? I'm Generation X, so literally I kind of half raised myself and latchkey kid type stuff but I can tell you just when it's like the letting go and love part. Like, I literally had to hold this space where she was like I would say something and then she would project all this negativity on me, and I'd just hold it and say, "You know what? You're right, you're right. I totally agree with you. I totally understand how you're feeling. I need you to know that I still love you. I will always love you. But I also have to tell you that I need to depart from you right now. Like, I'm creating a boundary." And I had given her this boundary in the past, and I didn't even honor my own boundary because she's such a strong presence. I mean, this is my mother. And a lot of you can maybe relate to this, but like that's something that I've had to evolve into in my healing is to say, like, in order for me to truly heal, I've had to create space and distance from people that I care about. Because here's the thing is that every time I walk through her door, it's like going into a time machine. I'm not a full grown man that's a father and building a business and making a difference in this world each and every day, right? I'm not that guy in her eyes. I'm still the little boy that is under her. And what I realized through my healing is that I can't fully evolve and bloom and blossom into my highest spiritual self if I'm going to keep that energy present in my life. That I needed distance. I needed space. It's just like any addiction. If you have any addiction, right? For me to get sober, I couldn't just keep going back to bars and hanging out with my friends that are still drunks. I had to like say, no more, no mas, adios. Maybe I'll come back. Maybe I won't, but I need to spend some time working on myself. And that means that I need to have space from you. And a lot of times that you would just cut it off. But this letting go and love mindset is where I can now say and realize the situation and say, hey, like I understand what I need to accomplish for my purpose and my calling. And in order for me to get there, that means that I need to depart from you. I need to at least create a boundary. And if you honor the boundary, okay, then we can still be close. If you don't honor the boundary, which it's your free will to choose, then there's going to be more space between us. And I don't know for how long. And I had to kind of give her that analogy of like when I was in the military and I went on deployment, like I was away for an extended period of time. And I said, look, I need to be away from you because I can't keep going back into this program of the past. I need to release that. I need to let that go. And I'm letting you know that the space between us that I am choosing is in love. I love you. I want to be able to reemerge in your life, right? As the next version of me, as as the greatest version of me, because if I become the greatest version of me, that means that I am going to be able to love you not out of obligation. I am going to be able to love you out of an unconditional place. And I hope that that's hitting for some of you, because we oftentimes are loving people out of obligation. And there's a lot of bitterness and there's a lot of resentment there. And it shows. It's all transactional. As opposed to if you were to create some space and let go of a relationship, right? And do the work, do some serious, heavy emotional lifting to heal yourself, to really reprogram the subconscious programs of your past. That if that relationship is meant to be, which I do believe a lot of parental relationships should stay intact, but there has to be some times apart, especially if you're going through a spiritual awakening, a spiritual evolution. And so I can fast forward to this most recent Mother's Day is that, I reached out to my mom, I took her out for a lunch and got her flowers. And it just, the time away, the time apart was enough to really reset the table to where we now have evolved our relationship to where I don't feel the looking down on me. I don't feel the insecurity and her need to like what's the word I want? To like control me or to keep me in that little boy container, her little baby boy, right? I've now expanded beyond that, and she has to come to her own awakening in that. But it took a lot of strength and courage on my part. And again, I had to let go in love. And I wasn't able to ever do that in the past. And this time I did it, and I can tell you it has paid off in spades. And I want to encourage you to give yourself permission to try and do the same thing. And I think that's the real meat of today's thoughts here, coming from my heart, coming from my spirit, right? And so I just encourage you, right? Today, even today, I'm having to let go of more things psychologically, right? A lot of times when we just think of letting go, we think we're losing everything. Or a lot of times there's been a subconscious program that says if you let go, then you're no longer in control. And if you're in control, you're out of control. And then that's some kind of a big time negative. And none of that's true. None of that is true. When you let go, especially if you're doing it with intention on throughout a spiritual awakening, you let go of everything you can possibly imagine, right? And you only lose the things that no longer align with where you are going. The other things are like boomerangs. Things that are meant to remain come right back. They come right back. And it's a beautiful thing. And I encourage you to find the strength and the willpower to truly create a list of things that you should consider releasing and letting go of, and see what happens. See if you don't have an incredible breakthrough. See if you don't feel a lot more peaceful, right? Because there's people that we are holding on to in our lives that we don't have peace with. We say we love each other, but there is not energetic peace. And it's because that there's an expiration there. You either need to get through some therapy together and reset everything. And even if you can't do it together, you need to do it. You have to be willing to let yourself have space to heal emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. So then that way, if that relationship is meant to continue on and thrive in the future, right, you can show up as a new version. And hopefully that inspires the other person, but oftentimes it doesn't. Oftentimes the other person is going to lash out at you, threaten rejection, abandonment, all kinds of stuff. And you have to be emotionally prepared for that too. And that's why you have to hold the container of love, saying, hey, I don't know if this is final. I'm just telling you, I love you. I love you so much, but I need to do this for me, for my spiritual journey, for my spiritual evolution. And so I leave you with those thoughts. I love you guys. You know the drill. Results kill excuses. It's all on me. Greg's out.